It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as Lana has teased a move to AEW to help her husband Miro. A promotion makes a big play for a former WWE Universal Champion. And we have an update regarding the future of Bray Wyatt. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first, let's start with a story from the Wrestling Observer Radio, where Dave Meltzer revealed that friends of a certain WWE superstar want him to jump ship when given the opportunity. Chad Gable, who is now on a team with Otis as Alpha Academy, is a former Olympic wrestler, with many feeling that his talents are underutilized in WWE, and Meltzer would reveal, "A lot of people, I know a lot of his friends want him to go to AEW, and I don't know what the contract situation is for him, but he's been so misused or buried or whatever that it's almost like you bring him, but I think he would be absolutely phenomenal in AEW. He's phenomenal now." Gable was recently drafted to the Raw brand as part of Night 1 of the WWE Draft, and whilst it's unclear when his WWE contract expires, it seems he would be welcomed with open arms in AEW should he decide to undergo a new challenge. AEW announced last week that former Ring of Honor television champion Bobby Fish is set to make his debut in the promotion. He'll be taking on new AEW TNT champion Sammy Guevara in his first defense of his title after defeating Miro last week on AEW Dynamite. PW Insider then followed this up with a report stating that Fish's appearance will not be a one-off, which now seems to have been confirmed by eagle-eyed AEW fans. If you take a look at the graphic for the TNT title match, you can see that Bobby Fish is wearing a yet-to-be-released AEW shirt, where an All Elite Wrestling logo can be spotted under the Fish graphic. AEW are very unlikely to put together a t-shirt for a wrestler they have no long-term plans with, and it's likely this shirt will be available on shopaew.com when Wednesday comes around. Interestingly, Fish's former Undisputed Era stablemate Adam Cole reacted to the graphic, simply saying, As we discussed in a recent Future Members of the Elite video, Bobby Fish could perhaps be the next member of the Elite. We've got a lot of news regarding recent WWE releases, so let's get into the next story, as Game Changer Wrestling appear to have snapped somebody up. Last night, former WWE star Fandango released a video revealing that he will be appearing at a future GCW show in Atlantic City. The promotion is set to host 2 events in Atlantic City presenting Fight Club, headlined by Jon Moxley vs Nick Gage on October 9th, as well as a show called The Aftermath on the next night. Whilst it's not known which event he will be appearing at, it seems that his ring name was revealed in the video, with the word Fandango originally being shown before being shortened to Dango. He is also going by the name of Dirty Dango on Twitter, which will likely be a nickname. Next up, the former Buddy Murphy appears to be teasing a future move to AEW, specifically as the Joker entrant in this Wednesday's Casino ladder match at AEW Dynamite Anniversary. The now Buddy Matthews would take to Twitter to post an emoji of a Joker card before quickly deleting it, a clear hint that he could be the final mystery entrant in the ladder match. The match will see a new participant enter after a countdown every few minutes, similar to that of the Royal Rumble, and the Joker is traditionally the mystery last entrant. The identity of the individual is always kept a secret until their music hits. Whilst this could easily be a troll to keep his name in the headlines, the former WWE Cruiserweight Champion would no doubt be a great fit for the AEW roster. We released a video earlier today discussing 10 candidates for the Joker spot in the Casino ladder match, so make sure you check that out after this video if you haven't already. But with that said, let's move on to the next story. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you drop a like on the video as it helps me out a lot, and make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head, hopefully, towards 100,000 subscribers. But now, let's press play on the video. All Elite Wrestling commentator Jim Ross appeared on his Grilling JR podcast this week and made comparisons between the current AEW roster and the roster WWE had during the Attitude Era, which was the hottest period the business has ever seen. Ross would discuss a tweet he received that showed a WWE Madison Square Garden card, which led him to make the comparison, and he said, "Somebody sent me a card from Madison Square Garden in WWE that I booked. It had too many guys on it, too many tags on it. And I said I will put our AEW roster in the same discussion as the Attitude Era roster." This roster is evolving much like the Attitude Era roster was. The difference is going to be the politics. Our owner is approachable night or day to anybody on the roster, from an extra that appears on Elevation to the main event guys that are headlining a pay-per-view. JR then went on to stress that this doesn't mean he's saying somebody in AEW is better than The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin, instead making clear that he's referring to the roster as a whole, and he added, "I tell the books all the time, you're the new Rock and Roll Express. You are undersized babyfaces who have now become very successful villains. We always reference something. I used to always reference without saying it that Jon Moxley, at times during his AEW run, has reminded me of Stone Cold. Attitudinal backstage stuff that fans don't see. He's a lot like Austin, a bit of a loner." The AEW roster has continued to become more stacked week after week as of late, and although the star power at the top of the card isn't comparable, the spread of tremendous talent from top to bottom certainly is. Former WWE Superstar and manager Lana would take to social media this weekend to tease a future move to AEW. She would bump into new AEW TNT champion Sammy Guevara at a Legends of the Ring convention in New Jersey, who of course pinned her husband Miro last week to become the new champion. Lana would post a video on her Instagram where she accused Guevara of cheating. Guevara then brought up the fact that it was Miro that tried to cheat by exposing the turnbuckles. Lana would then take part in a virtual signing at the event and would be asked if she had interest in joining AEW and replied, "Well, I'm going to tell you, stay tuned. I can't give everything away. I can't give all the hot tea right now." It seems that this is a hint that an AEW move is inevitable, and Lana would also reveal that she is able to use her WWE name of Lana, with many fans expecting her to use her real name of CJ Perry if she were to show up elsewhere. With Miro now having lost the AEW TNT Championship, perhaps this leaves open the chance for Lana to become All Elite and reunite with her real-life husband on screen to help him get back on track. Next up, Braun Strowman, now going by his real name of Adam Scherr, is now free to sign wherever he wants after his 90-day non-compete clause ended. We now have an update on his future coming from Fightful, who say that 2 major promotions have reached out to him, with talks said to have taken place. Fightful are reporting that they have learnt there has been talks between Strowman and AEW. In recent weeks, however, they had heard that Impact Wrestling is heavily interested in adding the former WWE Universal Champion to their roster. There is no word on a deal in place, but the word backstage at the recent Nashville Impact tapings was that the company were making a play, with this being far from a well-kept secret in the locker room. Individuals within the company feel like they will be able to sign him, though nothing is definite until he appears. Scherr recently made his first non-WWE wrestling appearance where he took part in the Free the Narrative event, which is a very interesting take on pro wrestling to say the least. The show features fantastic storytelling, and instead of a traditional commentator and a traditional venue, the show takes place in a dark and dingy warehouse, with a narrator adding context to what is being shown on screen. Just imagine Raw Underground, but if it was good. I won't spoil the result, but you can purchase Free the Narrative using our Fight affiliate link in the description for just $11.99, or you can get the Free the Narrative bundle, which includes the first show, for just $15.99, featuring the transformation of Matt Cardona. And finally, we have an update regarding the former Bray Wyatt, who was released from WWE just over 2 months ago. We now have an update from Fightful, who made reference to recent reports swirling from a Brian Alvarez quote where he said that he expected that Bray Wyatt was going to join Impact Wrestling. Fightful noted that this was never explicitly stated by Alvarez himself, essentially claiming his words were taken out of context, and it appears this may have just been his opinion. They added that sources close to Wyatt say there is no deal in place with Impact, and no deal is close to being signed. Fightful have confirmed that the Nashville promotion are interested in his services, and that members of the roster have reached out to Wyatt to help facilitate a move. Right now, there is still no solid indication as to where he will end up, and it should be stressed that while there is interest from Impact, nothing is close. It's also worth noting that on the most recent edition of Free the Narrative, there was a possible tease that Bray Wyatt is set to appear on the next event, as during the second show the narrator made mention of a Fiend emerging. EC3, who is the mind behind Free the Narrative, spoke with Cultaholic during a recent episode of Straight to Hell, where he mentioned a possible future Fiendish episode as well as a villainous one. This seemingly a reference not only to Bray Wyatt, but to Marty Scurll. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where we discuss who could be the surprise entrant in the upcoming Casino ladder match at AEW Dynamite Anniversary.